The roar of the crowd reverberated through the hull of the Vindicator, a symphony of bloodlust and excitement that Marcus Valerius had grown accustomed to over the years. As he ran his calloused hands over the ship's control panel, a bitter smile played across his lips. How far he had fallen, from respected merchant to prisoner gladiator, all because of one man's greed. The arena of stars loomed before him, a vast spherical force field containing debris, derelict stations, and treacherous asteroid fields, the perfect battleground for the spectacle that was about to unfold. 15 ships, 15 crews, all fighting for glory, credits, and in some cases, their very freedom. As the countdown to launch began, Marcus allowed his mind to drift back to that fateful day 5 years ago. He could still see the shock on his accountant's face as they discovered his accounts had been drained. The desperation as he realized his business, his reputation, his entire life's work had been wiped out in an instant. 30 seconds to launch, Captain called out Lucia, his second-in-command and navigation expert. Her voice snapped Marcus back to the present. "Thank you, Lucia," he replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "All hands, battle stations. This is the big one, people." As his crew of 9, a motley assortment of fellow prisoners and thrill-seeking volunteers, rushed to their positions, Marcus reflected on the path that had led him here. The fruitless appeals to the authorities, the mounting evidence of senatorial involvement in the theft, and finally, his ill-fated attempt to reclaim what was rightfully his. Breaking into that bank had been an act of desperation, a last-ditch effort to find proof of the conspiracy that had ruined him. Instead, it had landed him in chains, sentenced to fight for the entertainment of the very society that had betrayed him. But Marcus was nothing if not adaptable. He had taken to gladiatorial combat with a fervor that surprised even himself, driven by a burning desire for vengeance. Each victory brought him closer to his goal, amassing the wealth and influence needed to expose the corrupt senator who had orchestrated his downfall. 10 seconds, Lucia's voice cut through his thoughts once more. Marcus tightened his grip on the controls, his eyes fixed on the shimmering force field that separated him from his opponents. In moments, that barrier would drop, and the battle would begin. This fight was different. This time, he had wagered everything, every credit, every scrap of gold he had earned in the arena. It was all or nothing. Victory would mean freedom, wealth, and the means to pursue his true enemy. Defeat. Well, that didn't bear thinking about. As the final seconds ticked away, Marcus allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. The senator who had ruined him had no idea what was coming. This battle was just the beginning. 3, 2, 1, launch. The force field dropped, and the Vindicator surged forward into the chaos of the arena. As laser fire and explosions erupted around him, Marcus felt a familiar calm settle over him. Here, in the arena of stars, he was in control. And soon, very soon, he would have his revenge. The battle for justice was about to begin, and Marcus Valerius intended to win, no matter the cost. As the Vindicator surged into the chaotic melee, the true grandeur of the arena of stars revealed itself. A massive spherical construct hung suspended in space, its translucent force field containing a microcosm of cosmic warfare. Fractured asteroids drifted lazily, providing both cover and hazard. The hulks of long-abandoned space stations loomed in the distance, their twisted metal a testament to battles past. Marcus's eyes darted across the tactical display, taking in the positions of his 14 opponents. Each ship was a unique blend of salvage technology and gladiatorial modifications, ranging from nimble fighters to bulky, heavily armored cruisers. "Lucia, give me a rundown of our primary threats," Marcus commanded, his fingers dancing across the control panel as he maneuvered the Vindicator through a dense asteroid field. Lucia's voice came crisp and clear over the ship's comms. 3 ships of note, Captain. The Iron Fist, a heavy cruiser captained by Drydus the Unyielding. Slow, but its armor and firepower are unmatched. Then there's Shadow Dancer, a stealth corvette. Fast and tricky, prone to ambushes. Lastly, Nova's Revenge, a balanced medium cruiser with a reputation for unexpected tactics. Marcus nodded, processing the information. "Galen, what's our weapons status?" The gruff voice of his weapons officer responded, All systems green, Captain. Primary plasma cannons charged, missile bays loaded, and the EMP devices primed and ready. The EMP device, their secret weapon. A risky, experimental piece of technology that could disable an enemy ship's systems, but at the cost of significant power drain. It was a gamble, but then again, everything about this fight was a gamble. As if to emphasize the point, a barrage of laser fire streaked past the Vindicator's port side. Marcus banked hard, using a large asteroid as cover. Incoming, shouted Octavia, the sensor specialist. 2 ships on intercept course. Profiles match Crimson Talon and Starfall. Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. Looks like we've drawn some attention. Galen, prepare a spread of missiles. Lucia, plot me a course through that debris field to our starboard. Octavia, keep an eye out for any surprise visitors. As the crew acknowledged his orders, Marcus felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. This was where he thrived now, in the heat of battle, where every decision could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. The Vindicator burst from behind the asteroid, missiles launching in a deadly arc towards their pursuers. As chaos erupted around them, Marcus guided the ship into the treacherous debris field, his mind already calculating their next move. In the grand viewing galleries surrounding the arena, millions of spectators watched in rapt attention. Holographic displays showed the battle from every angle, while commentators breathlessly narrated the action. Bets were placed, fortunes were won and lost with each passing second. But for Marcus, the roar of the crowd faded into the background. His focus narrowed to the battle at hand, to the intricate dance of ships and weapons fire. Each maneuver, each fired shot brought him closer to his ultimate goal. As the Vindicator wove through the debris, plasma bolts sizzling past and explosions blossoming in the void, Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection. The path that had brought him here from respected merchant to desperate criminal to renowned gladiator had been long and painful. But it had forged him into a weapon, honed and deadly. Captain Lucia's voice cut through his thoughts. I'm detecting a power surge from Nova's revenge. They're up to something. Marcus's eyes narrowed. The real battle was just beginning, and he intended to emerge victorious. For his freedom, for his vengeance, for the justice long denied him. All right, crew, he said, his voice steady and determined. Let's show them why they call us the Vindicator. Prepare for attack pattern Delta. We're taking the fight to them. As the Vindicator banked hard, accelerating towards its new target, the arena of stars erupted in a fresh wave of chaos and destruction. The greatest gladiatorial battle in recent memory was unfolding, and at its center, a man driven by an unquenchable thirst for justice. The game was on, and Marcus Valerius played to win. The Vindicator surged forward, its engines flaring bright against the backdrop of stars and debris. Marcus's hands danced across the control panel, guiding the ship with the precision of a master fencer. Nova's revenge is charging their main cannon, Octavia reported, her voice tense. Energy readings are off the charts. Marcus's mind raced, calculating trajectories and probabilities. Lucia, full power to forward shields. Galen, ready the EMP device. As they closed in on Nova's revenge, the arena around them erupted into a frenzy of action. The remaining 13 ships had divided into smaller skirmishes, filling the void with laser fire and explosions. Suddenly, a blinding beam of energy lanced out from Nova's revenge, cutting through space towards the Vindicator. Marcus jerked the controls, narrowly avoiding the brunt of the attack. Even so, the ship shuddered as the edge of the beam grazed their shields. Shields at 60%, Lucia called out, her fingers flying over her console to reroute power. Marcus gritted his teeth. Now Galen, fire the EMP. A pulse of blue energy erupted from the Vindicator, expanding outward in a rippling wave. As it washed over Nova's revenge, the enemy ship's lights flickered and died, left drifting helplessly. Direct hit, Galen whooped. They're dead in the water. But there was no time to celebrate. 2 more ships, sensing weakness, were closing in fast. Incoming, Octavia shouted. Iron Fist and Shadow Dancer on intercept course. Marcus's mind raced. The heavy cruiser and the stealth corvette a dangerous combination. Lucia, plot an intercept course for the debris field near that old station. Galen, ready all weapons. As the Vindicator dove into the debris, Marcus felt a familiar calm settle over him. This was where he excelled in the chaos of battle, where quick thinking and quicker reflexes meant the difference between life and death. The Iron Fist lumbered after them, its massive form struggling to navigate the dense field of wreckage. But Shadow Dancer was another matter entirely, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible among the debris. "Captain, I've lost track of Shadow Dancer," Octavia reported, frustration evident in her voice. Marcus nodded grimly. "Keep your eyes peeled. They'll have to decloak to attack." As if on cue, a barrage of laser fire erupted from seemingly nowhere, peppering the Vindicator's aft shields. "Shields at 40%," Lucia called out. Marcus spun the ship, bringing its main guns to bear on the spot where the attack had originated. Galen full spread. Fire. A hail of plasma bolts and missiles streaked out, turning a section of debris into a maelstrom of fire and shrapnel. For a moment, Shadow Dancer's outline became visible as its cloaking field failed under the assault. "Direct hit," Galen crowed. "Shadow Dancer's hurt bad, Captain." But there was no time to press the advantage. The ponderous form of the Iron Fist had finally cleared the debris field, its massive guns glowing with building energy. Marcus's mind raced, assessing options, calculating risks. In that moment, as laser fire crisscrossed the void and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers, he felt truly alive. This was what he had been shaped for, in the crucible of injustice and the arena of stars. "All hands," he called out, his voice steady and determined. "Prepare for attack pattern Omega. We're going to finish this." As the Vindicator banked hard, accelerating towards its massive opponent, Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. The senator who had ruined him, who had set him on this path, had no idea what he had created. Soon, very soon, justice would be served. But first, there was a battle to be won. And Marcus Valerius intended to give the spectators a show they would never forget. The Vindicator hurtled towards the Iron Fist, a David charging at Goliath in the vast arena of stars. Marcus's hands were steady on the controls, his mind clear despite the chaos erupting around them. "Lucia, divert all non-essential power to the forward shields," Marcus commanded. "Galen, I want a full spread of missiles ready. Octavia, keep scanning for Shadow Dancer. They might be down, but I doubt they're out." As they closed the distance, the Iron Fist opened fire with its formidable array of weapons. Space itself seemed to warp as massive energy beams lanced out towards the Vindicator. "Evasive maneuvers," Marcus shouted, his fingers dancing across the controls. The ship rolled and twisted, narrowly avoiding the brunt of the assault. Even so, the Vindicator shuddered as glancing blows struck its shields. "Shields at 30% and dropping," Lucia called out, her voice tense but controlled. They were almost in range now. Marcus could see the individual weapon emplacements on the Iron Fist's hull, could almost feel the anticipation of its crew as they prepared for what they surely thought would be a killing blow. But Marcus had other plans. "Now, Galen, fire everything we've got." A storm of missiles erupted from the Vindicator, streaking towards the Iron Fist. At the same moment, Marcus cut the main engines and fired the lateral thrusters, sending the ship into a dizzying spin. The Iron Fist's point defense systems sprang to life, filling the space between the ships with a web of laser fire. But Marcus's unorthodox maneuver had thrown off their targeting, and more than half of the missiles made it through. Explosions blossomed across the Iron Fist's hull, its shields flickering and failing under the assault. But the massive ship was far from defeated. Return fire lashed out, catching the Vindicator as it came out of its spin. "Direct hit," Octavia shouted. "Hull breach in Section 4. Sealing bulkheads," Lucia responded immediately, rerouting power to compensate. Marcus gritted his teeth, feeling the ship groan around him. They'd hurt the Iron Fist, but at a cost, and the battle was far from over. Captain Octavia's voice was urgent. "I've got multiple contacts incoming." Looks like the other gladiators have decided to join the party. Marcus's mind raced, reassessing the battlefield. The one-on-one duel he'd envisioned had just turned into a free-for-all. But where others might see chaos, he saw opportunity. "Lucia, plot us a course through the densest part of the debris field," he ordered. "Galen, ready the EMP device again. We're going to let our friends out there thin each other out a bit." As the Vindicator dove into the treacherous field of wreckage and asteroids, laser fire and explosions erupted behind them. The remaining gladiator ships had engaged each other and the wounded Iron Fist, turning that section of the arena into a maelstrom of destruction. Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. The real test was yet to come, but he'd survived the opening salvo. More importantly, he'd proven that the Vindicator could go toe-to-toe with the best ships in the arena. As they wove through the debris, using the cover to make repairs and recharge their shields, Marcus's thoughts turned once again to his ultimate goal. The senator who had ruined him was out there somewhere, watching this spectacle, never suspecting that one of the gladiators was fighting for more than just freedom or glory. "Stay sharp," everyone Marcus said, his voice carrying to every corner of the ship. "This battle is far from over, but remember what we're fighting for. It's more than just survival now, it's justice." The crew's affirmative responses filled him with pride. They'd come together as a team, forged in the crucible of the arena. And now, as the sounds of battle drew closer once more, Marcus knew they were ready for whatever came next. The game was far from over, and Marcus Valerius intended to be the last one standing when the dust settled. As the Vindicator emerged from the debris field, the landscape of the battle had shifted dramatically. The once crowded arena had thinned, with several ships now drifting as lifeless hulks. The mighty Iron Fist, while still operational, bore the scars of multiple engagements, its once impenetrable armor now pockmarked with breaches. "Status report," Marcus commanded, his eyes scanning the tactical display. Lucia's voice came through crisp and clear. "Shields back up to 65%, Captain. Hull integrity holding at 78%. 7 ships still active," Octavia added, "including us. Wait. Incoming transmission from the Shadow Dancer." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." The gravelly voice of Shadow Dancer's captain, Ajax, filled the bridge. "Valerius, looks like we're the last of the small fries. What say we form a temporary alliance? Take out the big boys, then settle things between us." Marcus's mind raced, weighing the pros and cons. Ajax was known for his cunning and his betrayals, but the opportunity was too good to pass up. "Agreed," Marcus replied, keeping his tone neutral. "But know this, Ajax. Any sign of treachery, and you'll regret it." A chuckle came over the comm. "Wouldn't dream of it, Valerius. Sending you coordinates for a joint strike." As the transmission cut off, Marcus turned to his crew. "Stay alert. This alliance won't last long." The Vindicator and Shadow Dancer moved in tandem, weaving through the debris towards their first target, a heavily armed cruiser called the Titan's Hammer. As they approached, Marcus noticed a subtle shift in Shadow Dancer's trajectory. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted, just as Shadow Dancer's weapons flared to life, not aimed at the Titan's Hammer, but at the Vindicator. Marcus's quick thinking saved them from the brunt of the attack, but their shields still took a heavy hit. "Shields down to 40%, Lucia called out. "Should have known," Marcus growled. "Galen, return fire. Full spread." The Vindicator's weapons blazed, catching Shadow Dancer off guard. The stealth ship's cloaking device flickered and failed under the assault. But there was no time to press the advantage. The Titan's Hammer, alerted by the commotion, was now bearing down on both of them. "New plan," Marcus announced, his mind already formulating a strategy. "We're going to use Ajax's betrayal against him. Lucia, plot an intercept course that puts Shadow Dancer between us and the Titan's Hammer." As the Vindicator maneuvered, Marcus watched the tactical display intently. The Titan's Hammer, focused on what it perceived as the bigger threat, unleashed a devastating barrage on Shadow Dancer. Ajax's ship, caught between two foes, stood little chance. A brilliant explosion lit up the arena as Shadow Dancer was torn apart. but Marcus allowed himself no time for satisfaction. Now, while they're recharging, he commanded, all power to weapons. Hit them with everything we've got. The Vindicator's arsenal unleashed a storm of destruction upon the Titan's hammer. Plasma bolts and missiles found their mark with deadly accuracy, exploiting the weaknesses in the larger ship's defenses. For a moment, the Titan's hammer seemed to shrug off the assault. But then, a series of secondary explosions blossomed across its hull. The mighty ship listed to one side, its engines sputtering and dying. As the Titan's hammer drifted into the debris field, now nothing more than an oversized piece of space junk, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. They'd overcome betrayal and defeated a superior foe. But the battle was far from over. "Good work, everyone," he said, his voice carrying a mix of pride and determination. "But stay focused. We're down to the final 4, and you can bet they're all gunning for us now." As if to emphasize his point, a warning klaxon blared. Octavia's voice rang out, tense but controlled multiple contacts, closing fast from all directions. Marcus's hands tightened on the controls. The real test was about to begin. But as he prepared to face this new threat, he felt a surge of confidence. They'd made it this far. They would see it through to the end. For freedom. For justice. For vengeance. The final act of this deadly drama was about to unfold, and Marcus Valerius intended to be the author of its conclusion. The Vindicator's alarms blared as 3 ships closed in from different directions. The Iron Fist, battered but still formidable, approached from the port side. The sleek and deadly Nova's Revenge, having recovered from the earlier EMP attack, bore down from starboard. And from above, the heavily modified freighter Corsair's Gambit joined the fray. Marcus's mind raced, analyzing the situation. They were outgunned and outnumbered. Conventional tactics would lead to certain defeat. It was time for something unconventional. "Lucia, plot a course directly for that large asteroid at Mark 227," Marcus commanded. "Galen, ready all remaining missiles. Octavia, I need constant updates on our pursuers' positions." As the Vindicator accelerated towards the massive, cratered asteroid, laser fire and plasma bolts crisscrossed the void around them. The ship shuddered as glancing blows struck their already weakened shields. Shields at 25% and falling, Lucia called out, her fingers dancing across the controls as she tried to reinforce their defenses. They were seconds away from the asteroid now. Marcus could see the individual craters and chasms on its surface, growing larger by the moment. "All hands, brace for impact," Marcus shouted. At the last possible second, he fired the lateral thrusters, sending the Vindicator into a gut-wrenching spin. They skimmed the asteroid's surface, using its bulk as a shield against their pursuers. "Now, Galen, fire all missiles, maximum spread." A swarm of missiles erupted from the Vindicator, not aimed at their enemies, but at the asteroid itself. Explosions blossomed across its surface, sending a hail of debris outward in all directions. The pursuing ships, caught off guard by this maneuver, flew directly into the expanding cloud of rock and metal. Impacts rang out as debris pelted their hulls and shields. Direct hits on all 3 ships, Octavia reported, a note of excitement in her voice. Iron Fist's starboard weapons array is disabled. Nova's Revenge has suffered multiple hull breaches. Corsair's Gambit is, wait, they're breaking off. Marcus allowed himself a grim smile. They'd bought themselves some breathing room, but at a cost. The Vindicator's missile banks were now depleted, and the strain of the maneuver had taken its toll on the ship's systems. "Damage report," he called out. Lucia's response was tense. "Engine efficiency down to 70%. Shields holding at 18%. We've got minor hull breaches in sections 3 and 7, but emergency force fields are holding." Marcus nodded, his mind already formulating their next move. They'd survived, even gained an advantage, but the battle was far from over. The remaining ships would regroup, come at them with even more desperation. "All right, crew," he said, his voice steady and determined. "We've shown them what we're capable of. But this fight isn't over yet. Lucia, set a course for that debris field near the old space station. Galen, I want our remaining weapons hot, and ready. Octavia, keep a close eye on our friends out there. I have a feeling they're not done with us yet. As the Vindicator limped towards the cover of the debris field, Marcus allowed himself a moment of reflection. They'd overcome impossible odds, turned certain defeat into a fighting chance. It was a reminder of why he was here, why he fought. Not just for freedom or glory, but for justice long denied. The senator who had ruined him was out there somewhere, watching this spectacle. Marcus silently vowed that he would live to see the end of this battle, to claim his freedom and begin his true mission. The Arena of Stars had witnessed many legendary battles, but none quite like this. And Marcus Valerius intended to write the final, victorious chapter of this tale. As they entered the debris field, new alarms began to sound. The final confrontation was about to begin, and the fate of Marcus and his crew hung in the balance. The Vindicator weaved through the debris field, its hull scraping against twisted metal as Marcus pushed the ship to its limits. Behind them, the remaining gladiator ships closed in, their weapons leaving trails of superheated plasma in the void. Status update, Marcus barked, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. Octavia's voice was tense but clear. Iron Fist is hanging back, likely due to damage. Nova's Revenge is closing fast on our port side. Corsair's Gambit has re-engaged, coming in from above. Marcus nodded, his mind racing through potential strategies. They were down to their last options, but he wasn't out of tricks yet. Lucia, divert all non-essential power to engines and weapons. Galen, charge the EMP device. We're only going to get one shot at this. As if on cue, a barrage of fire from Nova's Revenge lit up space around them. The Vindicator shuddered as several shots found their mark. Direct hit, Lucia called out. Shields failing. We've got hull breaches in sections 4 through 6. Marcus gritted his teeth. It was now or never. Helm, full reverse. Galen, fire the EMP on my mark. The Vindicator's engines flared as it came to an abrupt stop. Nova's Revenge, caught off guard by the sudden maneuver, overshot its target. Now Marcus shouted. The EMP device discharged, sending a wave of crackling blue energy outward. Nova's Revenge, caught at the epicenter of the blast, went dark, its systems overloaded. But the victory was short-lived. Corsair's Gambit, having avoided the EMP blast, unleashed a devastating volley. The Vindicator rocked violently as explosions blossomed across its hull. We're losing power, Lucia's voice was edged with panic. Engines down to 30%, weapons at 45%. Marcus's mind raced. They were crippled, nearly defenseless. But as he looked at the tactical display, a plan began to form. Galen, do we have any propulsion on our ejection pods? Aye, Captain. Basic maneuvering thrusters, why? A grim smile played across Marcus's lips. Load them with our remaining explosives. We're going to give our friends out there a little surprise. As the crew scrambled to prepare this makeshift weapon, Corsair's Gambit closed in for the kill. Its captain's voice crackled over the comm, full of smug triumph. Well fought, Valerius. But it's over. Surrender now and I'll make your end quick. Marcus keyed the comm, buying time. You know I can't do that, Cassius. There's too much at stake. Always the idealist, Cassius sneered. Very well. Goodbye, Mar. The transmission cut off as Marcus gave the order. Fire pods, now. A dozen ejection pods launched from the Vindicator, their thrusters guiding them on an intercept course with Corsair's Gambit. Cassius, believing them to be escape pods, moved to avoid them. It was the last mistake he would ever make. The pods detonated in a chain reaction, engulfing Corsair's Gambit in a ball of fire. When the light faded, all that remained was a field of debris. For a moment, silence reigned on the Vindicator's bridge. Then, slowly, a cheer began to build. We did it, Lucia whispered, almost in disbelief. We actually did it. Marcus allowed himself a small smile, but he knew it wasn't over yet. In the distance, the Iron Fist still lurked, damaged but far from defeated. Don't celebrate just yet, he cautioned. We've got one last dance partner out there, and I intend to see this through to the end." As the Vindicator limped towards its final confrontation, Marcus felt a surge of determination. They had come too far, sacrificed too much, to falter now. The endgame was approaching, and with it, the promise of freedom, of justice, of a chance to right the wrongs of the past. Marcus Valerius steeled himself for the final battle. The arena of stars awaited, and history was about to be made. The Vindicator drifted through the debris-strewn arena, its hull scarred and systems barely functioning. In the distance, the imposing silhouette of the Iron Fist loomed, a wounded titan preparing for one last battle. Marcus surveyed his ship's status with grim determination. "Give me a full report," he ordered, his voice steady despite the dire circumstances. Lucia's fingers danced across her console. "It's not good, Captain. Engines at 25%, weapons at 30%. Shields are. Well, we don't have shields anymore. Life support is stable, but that's about our only good news." Galen chimed in from the weapons station. "We've got one plasma torpedo left, and enough charge for maybe 2 volleys from the main guns. After that, we're throwing rocks." Marcus nodded, his mind racing through potential strategies. They were outgunned and outmaneuvered, but not yet outfought. "Octavia, what's the status of the Iron Fist?" "They're hurting too," Captain Octavia replied, studying her sensors. "Their starboard weapons array is still offline, and I'm detecting fluctuations in their power grid. They're tough, but not invincible." A plan began to form in Marcus's mind. It was risky, possibly suicidal, but it was their only chance. "All right, listen up. We're going to make one last run at them. Lucia, plot a course that takes us right past their starboard side. Galen, when I give the word, I want everything we've got left aimed at their power core." The crew exchanged glances, understanding the gravity of the plan. This was it, their final gambit. As the Vindicator began its approach, the Iron Fist opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked past them, some finding their mark and sending shudders through the ship's frame. "Hull breach in Section 2, Lucia called out. Emergency force fields are holding, but barely." Marcus gritted his teeth, hands tight on the controls. "Stay the course. We only get one shot at this." The distance closed rapidly. The Iron Fist loomed larger and larger in their view screen, its remaining weapons blazing. Now Marcus shouted, "Give them everything we've got." The Vindicator's remaining weapons roared to life. The plasma torpedoes streaked towards the Iron Fist, followed by a barrage from their main guns. For a moment it seemed as if their assault had no effect. Then, a series of explosions blossomed across the Iron Fist's hull. Its power core, already strained, couldn't withstand the focused assault. Chain reactions tore through the massive ship, ripping it apart from the inside. The bridge of the Vindicator erupted in cheers as the Iron Fist broke apart, its fragments scattering across the arena. They had done it. Against all odds, they had emerged victorious. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Marcus allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. They had won more than just a gladiatorial contest. They had won their freedom, and with it, the chance to pursue justice. The voice of the arena announcer boomed across all channels. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a winner. The Vindicator and its crew have emerged victorious in one of the most spectacular battles in arena history." Marcus keyed the ship-wide comm. "We did it, everyone. We're free." The crew's cheers echoed through the battered ship, a sound of pure joy and relief. As the Vindicator limped towards the arena's exit, Marcus's thoughts turned to the future. The corrupt senator who had ruined him was still out there, still unaware that his past actions had forged a weapon aimed directly at him. The battle in the arena was over, but Marcus Valerius knew that his true fight was just beginning. With his newfound wealth and freedom, he would uncover the truth and bring justice to those who thought themselves above the law. The stars beckoned, promising new challenges and opportunities, and Marcus was ready to meet them head-on. The Vindicator docked at the arena's medical and repair station, its hull still smoking from the intense battle. As the airlock cycled open, Marcus and his crew were greeted by a cacophony of cheers and applause. Arena officials, medical staff, and even other gladiators crowded the docking bay, all eager to catch a glimpse of the victorious team. Marcus stepped forward, his posture straight despite the exhaustion etched on his face. An arena official approached, holding a datapad. "Congratulations," Captain Valerius, the official said, his voice filled with awe. "Your victory today was nothing short of legendary. As promised, you and your crew are hereby granted your freedom, along with your winnings." Marcus nodded, accepting the datapad. His eyes widened slightly as he saw the figure displayed a sum large enough to buy a small fleet of ships. "Thank you," he said simply, his mind already racing with plans. As the medical staff ushered his crew away for treatment, Marcus found a quiet corner amidst the chaos. He activated his personal communicator, inputting a code he had memorized years ago. A gruff voice answered. "This is Quintus." "Who is this?" "It's Marcus," he replied, his voice low. "The gladiator matches are over. I have the resources we need. It's time to begin." There was a pause on the other end. "Are you sure about this, Marcus? Once we start, there's no going back." Marcus's eyes hardened, his jaw set with determination. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. That senator ruined me, ruined countless others. It's time he answered for his crimes." "Very well," Quintus replied. "I'll start gathering the intel. Meet me on Nexus Station in 3 days. And Marcus, watch your back. You've made quite a name for yourself in that arena. There are those who might not want you poking around in the past." "Let them try to stop me," Marcus said, a hint of his gladiatorial fierceness creeping into his voice. "I'll be there." As he ended the call, Marcus looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewport. For years, he had dreamed of this moment free, with the means to pursue justice. The path ahead would be dangerous, filled with political intrigue and potential betrayals. But after what he'd been through in the arena, he felt ready for anything. He rejoined his crew, who were being treated for their injuries. "Listen up," he said, gathering them close. "You've all earned your freedom and a share of the winnings. What you do next is up to you. But I'm offering you a choice. Stay with me and help me uncover a conspiracy that goes to the very heart of the Drydus Confederation. It'll be dangerous, possibly fatal, but if we succeed, we'll have struck a blow for justice that will echo across the galaxy." One by one, his crew members nodded their assent. They had been through hell together in the arena, forging bonds stronger than steel. They would see this through to the end. As they began to plan their next move, Marcus felt a surge of anticipation. The corrupt senator and his allies had no idea what was coming. They had created their own worst enemy, tempered in the fires of the gladiatorial arena. The game of vengeance was about to begin, and Marcus Valerius intended to win no matter the cost. As the Vindicator underwent repairs, its crew recuperating, Marcus stood at the viewport, his gaze fixed on the stars. Out there, somewhere, lay the answers he sought, the justice he craved, and he would find them, or die trying. The arena of stars had been just the beginning. The true battle for truth, for justice, for the very soul of the Drydus Confederation was about to unfold. Marcus Valerius, once a respected merchant, then a gladiator, and now a man on a mission, allowed himself a grim smile. The hunt was on, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe and leave it a like, and I'll see you in the next one.